Welcome back to episode 95 of That's So Second Millennium. This is an interview Bill did with a musician that he knows in South Bend, a young woman that he met named Micki Miller. If you look her up on YouTube, her group is called Chibrations, or at least she has done, at least the recording Bill sent was from that group and had her singing and was pretty darn good. He talks to her about music and communication, and there's a little bit, you might say, of sociology and the effect that music has on people. It's a bit of a departure for us, but it's an interesting little interview. And I'll chime back at the end to talk to you a little bit about a project that Bill and I have been working on, mostly Bill, but me as well. That's been taking up a lot of our time, but it's another podcast. But first, enjoy this conversation with Bill and Micki, and I'll chime in again for a little bit at the end.
Well, Micki, this is great to be here in your recording studio. And we met each other as musicians on the board of directors of the Music Village in South Bend. But we've also talked about connections between music and technology, which we've been talking about today, and the deeper matters of things spiritual and faith and matters of the heart. And you grew up with music in settings that were kind of combining all of those things.
Yeah.
What were your first experiences of music along those lines? Did you sense that there was something that connected to science and religion and faith and all of that?
Well, yeah, I grew up in church, really, as a kid. My parents pastored pretty much all my life, so I was always kind of in an environment of faith and spirituality and just kind of being connected to the deeper meaning behind anything you do in life. But I think music obviously has a way of touching all types of people and all different areas of the world that no other thing. I don't want to say music is the greatest power, but it's one of the most amazing things that we get to experience, and I think it does have a deeper meaning in music and technology and education and science and all of these things. So I think, like, naturally I've just always kind of connected music and spirituality because I was kind of born into it that way. Mm-hmm. And, music has made me feel ways that I know is deeper than just the way it sounds. There's definitely a deeper meaning behind it for me. So, yeah, I definitely think it's connected.
Wow. You're making me realize that someone observed to me the other day that church is one of the few places left in the world where people of all ages gather together to have essentially a sing-along, you might say.
Yeah.
Whereas in the old days, I guess in a lot of homes, people might gather around the piano in the living room.
That doesn't
or something.
happen anymore.
Right.
It doesn't happen anymore, and it's kind of sad because I think music in the past, throughout the years, it has been a very huge force in healing and even in politics and the civil rights movement and different things that have occurred in our country and our world. Music has always been some force of power and a great way for messages to be relayed and even encouragement. Like a positive song can just make you feel better. Pharrell has the song Happy that's super popular. You don't really think about it much, but when you hear that song, it just kind of naturally puts you in
makes you happy.
Yeah, it makes you happy. It puts you in a better mood. And the same way if you're feeling down, a sad song can make you feel that much more sad. So I think people just have to be more mindful of like the power behind music and the power behind words. Because I know it's becoming kind of a lost art with technology and different things like that, but words are so powerful, and being able to connect words with music and reach people that you typically probably wouldn't be able to reach just through a regular conversation is just, you have to look at it as a spiritual thing in a way, because it's just, it's incredible the power that it has to reach different minds and hearts all over the world. So
I love that. Yeah. And one of the problems with the split between science and religion is that people perceive, at least maybe from their experience in the classroom, that it's two completely different ways of thinking. And even their teachers aren't trying to build bridges between those two ways of thinking. But maybe if we stop trying to think through it and maybe bring in the elements of music and something deeper than just the thought process, maybe that would help. But what do you think about that bridge building power of music?
Man, I think we were talking about it before, just the power of bridge building, and even with different instrumentalists around the world. We talked about, some people that might play certain instruments don't feel like they fit in certain genres and different. And I just think it's super important, especially right now with the world and the state that it's in, is to kind of be able to bridge the gap between genre and bridge the gap between religion and bridge the gap between culture through music, because I feel like music just has a way of speaking one message in many different ways from many different voices. And I think, science even, people sometimes, I think, growing up in religion, a lot of times, science is like scary and it's like, wait, what? It's weird. But I think it all ties together. All of it ties together in the making of this beautiful world that we are blessed to live in. And I really believe that, if people use the power of our creative beings, we are all creative beings and all able to create something, but to take what I make in music and be able to speak to someone that may not understand me or may not understand my culture, but they understand that song and they understand the way that it makes them feel. I think if more people could really tap into that together on like a oneness type thing, I think it could be a really, really cool revolution rather for people all over the world, because it has that power. I remember I was at a retreat and I was in a session, and there was, back in the day, there was a big production team, Gamble and Huff. And Mr. Gamble was at this retreat, and he talked to us about the power of music. And he talked about a lot of the music that they created back in the 60s. And he was laughing, saying like the artists that he was working with, they were saying how they were tired of making message music that was, music of hope. Because it's like, yeah, you kind of want to make music that's on the radio and that people dance to. But sometimes you have to make those hard songs that kind of get messages across and different things like that. And he just said, he compared the power of music to an atomic bomb.
Wow.
And he said the power of music transcends barriers that, we never could have imagined, some of the things that music has opened up the world to, that we all are relatable to. People in China can relate to a song that we relate to here, and it's because of music and the connection. And even though they might not understand the lyrics, they know how that song makes them feel. And even though I might not understand the lyrics to a song I just recently heard a song and it was in Spanish and I didn't know everything that was being said, but I remember how that song made me feel. Right. And I think like that in itself just kind of speaks to, the power of music and its ability to really bring us together in a way that everybody might not look at it like that, but when you kind of look at the deeper meaning of music, it makes you be more intentional about how you create and what you create.
Wow.
So yeah, I think we can bridge the gap here somehow.
Yeah, and that it doesn't necessarily, like a lot of there are programs being developed now. I one at Notre Dame, for instance, where teaching teachers how to help kids see that science and religion aren't incompatible. That there really is middle ground. But you're making me realize that even that bridge building program is mostly about how you think about these things. It's almost like the first step is to make people feel differently and have a different mind frame that, well, yeah, maybe everything is kind of more connected than we immediately think.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, I agree.
And that would be a good form of schooling for everybody, just to learn that.
And knowledge is power. I think science is knowledge and studied, practiced different things. And I just believe that if people were more open-minded to learning more about different things and exposing themselves to different things that may not necessarily be familiar to their traditions, that we could kind of learn a lot more about science and even religion and how they tie in together. But it definitely takes that, the swallowing of your pride to say, like maybe the traditions that I am, standing on can be a little wrong here.
Right.
Maybe I can open my mind to, learning different things about the way the world is and Earth and all these different things. I mean, who are we to, we'll never know. I think great is the mystery of God. Like, we'll never know everything specifically how it works and how everything is constructed in this world. But I think, we should be very open-minded to the fact that, like, it's our one way might not be the only way, I guess is,
right.
We gotta be more open-minded in this world.
Ooh. Those are great thoughts. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Likewise.
I hope you enjoyed that recording, that interview with Bill and the musician Micki Miller. So I just wanted to let you know that Bill and I have also been working on a podcast. Bill arranged this with the Purdue School of Engineering. So it is the 120th anniversary year for the Purdue School of Engineering this year, following hard on the heels of Purdue's 150th anniversary overall. And so we've been working on a podcast called Sounds Like the Future. So you can look that up, and of course I'll provide a link in the show notes for this. And it's also, I just did a Facebook Live, so the link is there as well. And it's been interesting. So the first episode has been released where we talk to the deans about, the sort of overall significance of it. We have some really interesting interviews coming out. One with the next one that should be coming out is with Professor Ed Delp in the electrical engineering department. He does a lot of work in image processing, and he had some fascinating stories about Purdue's role in the early history of television and image processing, as well as the work that he's currently doing, which is fascinating. Of course, it bears on things like deep fake videos and things of that nature, things that we're starting to become concerned about, the tools that technology gives us and our ability to deal with the consequences. So it's a fascinating podcast. Bill's worked very hard on putting this together, and be great if you could support him and listen to a few episodes. If you like a lot of the subjects that we've talked about in the past, you may be very interested in some of what we're talking about there. Obviously, there's no explicit faith component in those podcasts. And of course, the first couple of interviews, we actually interviewed the deans and Ed Delp, and then our podcast for That's So Second Millennium last month with Dr. Tom Ryba. Of course, we actually did all those interviews on the same day, which is kind of fun. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you soon. If you enjoyed this episode or one of our previous episodes, please leave us a review on iTunes. iTunes is the biggest distributor of podcasts, and having reviews there will help us reach a wider audience. We would also love it if you posted your review on other services like Google Play and Stitcher as well. Our intro music is Mars, the Bringer of War, and our outro music is Venus, the Bringer of Peace, from the Planet Suite by Gustav Holst, performed by the U.S. Air Force Heritage of America Band. The recording is in the public domain and made available by museopen.org. For my co-host Bill Schmidt, I'm Paul Giesting. Thanks for listening to another episode of That's So Second Millennium.